Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something we rarely address in its full truth. When a woman lives without sex, the world often assumes she is missing something, that she is incomplete, empty, or even broken. But here's the truth. Sex is not just an act for a woman. It is energy, it is connection, it is vulnerability, and above all, it is a mirror that reflects back her sense of worth, her desires, and how deeply she feels seen. So what happens when a woman lives without sex? At first, perhaps nothing. She feels in control. She may even feel powerful. She has claimed her body back from the noise, from the obligation, from society's constant pull on her sensuality. She rediscovers her own rhythms. She may feel more peaceful, less distracted. But over time, the absence of intimacy becomes more than physical. It's emotional, spiritual, psychological. She begins to feel untouched, not just in skin, but in soul. She starts to wonder, am I still desirable? Am I still magnetic? She might bury her sensual self under layers of productivity, caretaking, and strength. She becomes functional, but less felt. Let's be clear, it's not the absence of sex that wounds her. It's the absence of being desired, being touched, being chosen, being seen. Sex is more than physical for women. It is a doorway into connection, safety, and emotional truth. When a woman chooses to be intimate, she is not merely offering her body, she is offering her trust, her openness, her vulnerability. Her body becomes a language, speaking things that words cannot contain. The act itself may look simple on the outside, but within her, a complex dance of emotion, energy, and psychological response is unfolding. She is not asking to be taken. She is asking to be felt, truly felt. For a woman, being touched without presence feels hollow. It can even feel invasive, because what she craves isn't just the sensation of skin. It is the feeling of being known, being cherished, being seen without armor. Her body is an extension of her emotional self, and to enter it without sensitivity is to miss the entire point. She doesn't just want friction, she wants frequency, the resonance of two energies that collide not in chaos, but in conscious connection. When sex is aligned with emotion, a woman glows from the inside out. Her body responds, yes, but more than that. Her heart softens, her guard comes down. She becomes more radiant, expressive, alive. Not because she is being fulfilled by someone else, but because she is being mirrored, deeply, gently. She is reminded that she is not too much, that her passion, her hunger, her longing, all of it is sacred, not shameful. When that level of presence is missing, sex becomes mechanical. It can leave her feeling lonelier than before, disconnected from her own body, questioning her worth, wondering why something that's supposed to bring closeness makes her feel invisible. This is why a woman would often rather go without sex at all than engage in it without meaning. Because meaningless sex leaves residue, emotional residue. It clings to her spirit like a question left unanswered. It echoes in her chest as a hunger not satisfied but forgotten. This is why emotional safety is the real aphrodisiac. When a woman feels emotionally safe, her body opens, her energy flows, her mind quiets. She is not performing, she is becoming who she is when no one is judging her, when she is not being rushed, when she is not shrinking her moans, her movements, or her magic. She becomes fluid, not because someone gave her permission, but because someone gave her presence. A woman does not want sex to feel loved. She wants love to make sex feel sacred. And when that happens, it's not just her body that says yes, it's her soul. She carries that energy into everything, into how she walks, how she speaks, how she dreams. Because when a woman is truly met in intimacy, she is not changed, she is awakened. At first, when a woman lives without sex, there can be a sense of control, even liberation. She steps out of societal expectations, away from the noise that often tells her who to be, how to act, what to give. She claims her body back, not as an object of someone else's desire, but as her own sovereign space. There is a strength in that decision, a quiet kind of empowerment. She begins to feel that she doesn't need validation from anyone. She can function on her own, succeed on her own, even enjoy herself on her own. Her sensuality becomes a private, internal flame, not burning for anyone else, not performing for the world. That independence can feel like a win. It's clean, it's safe, it's hers. But slowly, beneath that confidence, a silence can start to grow. Not the peaceful kind, the aching kind. She may not talk about it, she may not even recognize it at first, but it's there, whispering in quiet moments. It's the silence of being untouched, not in body but in essence. It's the silence of no longer feeling desired, no longer being seen in a way that makes her soften. That deep gaze, that gentle reach, that electric polarity, it's gone. And without it, a part of her begins to wonder if her sensual self still exists, or if it's just a story from another life. She'll stay productive, she'll keep moving, she might fill the space with work, friendships, caretaking, even spiritual practices, but that subtle absence lingers, not because she needs sex to feel whole, but because she longs to feel mirrored, to be looked at with reverence, to be chosen with intention. There is a unique nourishment that comes from intimacy, and when it's been missing long enough, even the strongest woman can begin to feel emotionally dehydrated. It's not about weakness, it's about truth. Her body knows it, her nervous system knows it, her heart knows it. Sometimes the empowerment she feels is a shield, a protective barrier to avoid disappointment, abandonment, or the emptiness of meaningless encounters. It's easier to stay away than to risk being touched without being seen, so she tells herself she doesn't need it, and maybe for a time she truly believes that. But deep down, a quieter part of her, the part that remembers passion, closeness, sacred touch, still aches, not for just anyone, not for attention, but for the depth that can only come when someone is fully present, fully willing, fully awake to who she really is. That ache doesn't make her weak, it makes her human. It reminds her that beneath all her strength, there is still a woman who wants to be held, not just physically, but emotionally, energetically. The longer she goes without that, the more she risks losing touch with her own softness. And though she may appear powerful on the outside, inside, she may be quietly starving for connection. When a woman lives without sex, the deepest void is rarely just physical. What truly fades is not the act itself, but the experience of being truly seen, truly wanted. It's not about the touch, it's about the intention behind it. It's about being looked at with presence, with longing, with reverence, not just through the lens of lust, but through the eyes of someone who sees all of her, her fire, her flaws, her softness, her depth, and still chooses her. What she misses is not just being undressed, but being noticed without having to ask for attention, being studied slowly like a mystery worth unraveling, being chosen not just for her body, but for the energy she carries into a room, for the way her soul speaks in silence. Sex, when stripped of this emotional intimacy, becomes hollow. Even when the body is engaged, the heart remains untouched. That kind of intimacy doesn't nourish a woman, it drains her. And so, over time, many women retreat. They withhold, they build walls, not because they don't want intimacy, but because the kind they've experienced has left them feeling emptier than when they started. What she longs for isn't penetration, it's recognition. She wants to be remembered in someone's fingertips, to be felt beyond the surface. She wants the kind of closeness that undresses her spirit, not just her skin. Without that, a strange loneliness settles in, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being unseen in plain sight. She could be in a room full of people, or even in a relationship, and still feel invisible, because what she craves isn't just company, it's connection. that electric awareness where someone looks at her like she matters, like they see something rare in her, something wild and sacred all at once. When that's missing, she doesn't just feel untouched, she feels unchosen. And that ache is deeper than any lack of physical closeness. Over time, she may begin to question herself. Is she still attractive, still radiant, still magnetic? That absence of desire reflected back at her can start to dim her own sense of beauty. She might still smile, still show up, still hold it all together, but underneath there is a question she can't quite shake. Do I still stir something in anyone? Am I still felt? That's the grief no one talks about, the grief of being overlooked, of not being the object of someone's hunger, someone's fascination, someone's craving for who she is, not just what she looks like. She doesn't need to be needed, but she wants to be wanted. Not out of desperation, but because there is a sacredness in being desired with depth. It affirms her existence in a way that feels real. When someone sees her not as a role or a responsibility, but as a living, breathing, feeling being, that is when she feels truly alive. That is the kind of desire she longs for, and without it, life can start to feel muted, even if everything looks fine from the outside. The sensual, feminine energy within a woman is not something that disappears when it's not expressed. It doesn't fade away because she hasn't been touched in months or years. It doesn't dry up because she hasn't had someone whisper her name in the dark or press their palm against her lower back with intention. No, that energy doesn't die. It waits. It waits quietly, patiently, sometimes even painfully. It lingers beneath her routines, beneath her responsibilities, beneath the version of herself she presents to the world. The composed, the reliable, the strong. It curls up in her hips, in her chest, in her breath, hoping for a moment, a presence, a spark that says, "You can come alive now." Feminine sensuality is not fragile, it's elemental. It's not a performance, though she's been taught to make it one. It's not a currency, though the world has tried to reduce it to that. It's a force, raw, creative, sacred, and even when it is unexpressed, it remains intact. Sometimes it becomes a quiet storm inside her. Sometimes it takes the form of frustration or restlessness or even sadness that she doesn't fully understand, but it's always there, waiting not for a person, but for permission, for space, for softness, for safety to return. She may tell herself she's fine without that part of her being awakened. She may focus on work, family, goals. She may convince herself she has outgrown desire, but at night, or in the shower, or when she hears a certain piece of music, she remembers. A pulse moves through her body that reminds her she is still a woman, still alive, still full, still needing more than logic and structure. Her sensuality isn't gone, it's just resting beneath the surface, like a river under frozen earth. And when the right moment comes, not necessarily a lover but a reconnection with herself, that energy rises again like a tide. It doesn't need to be taught how to move. It remembers. It remembers how her skin wants to be touched. It remembers how her breath deepens when she feels safe. It remembers how to dance, how to ache, how to surrender. That's the miracle of feminine energy. It's cyclical, not linear. It doesn't expire. It hibernates. And the longer it waits, the more powerful it becomes when it finally returns. In truth, this waiting is not weakness, it's wisdom. The feminine waits because she knows that giving her energy to the wrong presence leaves her empty. She knows that intimacy without connection drains her. So she waits, not because she has no fire, but because her fire is sacred. And when the time comes, when she feels seen, when she feels safe, when she feels free, that energy will not come back as a flicker. It will come back as a flame that touches every part of her life. Because what is dormant is not dead. What is quiet is not gone. Her sensuality lives always in stillness, in silence, in her, waiting for the moment when it can rise without fear. When a woman goes without sex for a long period of time, something unexpected can begin to happen. In the silence where touch used to live, she begins to hear parts of herself that were once drowned out. At first, the absence might feel like a void, a quiet reminder of something missing, a subtle ache, a longing. But with time, that emptiness can shift. It can become a mirror, one that reflects not what she lacks, but who she truly is when no one is touching her, claiming her, or asking her to bend. It becomes a sacred space where she starts to peel back layers she didn't even know she was hiding beneath. She begins to meet herself in ways that sex, especially unfulfilling or emotionally disconnected sex, never allowed her to. She rediscovers her own rhythms. Her body becomes hers again, not an offering, not a battlefield, not a negotiation. She starts to feel the quiet pulse of her desires, not just sexually, but spiritually, creatively, emotionally. The energy she once gave to pleasing, performing, or proving herself in intimacy begins to redirect inward, into her healing, into her creativity, into her purpose, into the kind of self-love that doesn't need to be announced, just deeply known. In that space, she begins to listen to the woman within, the one who might have been buried under years of longing to be chosen. Without sex, she may begin to question what connection truly means to her, what kind of intimacy she truly craves, what kind of presence she is no longer willing to accept. She becomes more discerning, not bitter, more grounded, not closed. She learns that the hunger she once thought could only be satisfied through physical touch was really pointing her toward emotional depth, spiritual resonance, and personal alignment. She starts to see sex not as a need to be filled, but as an energy to be shared, carefully, intentionally, passionately, only with someone who can meet her where she truly lives. The absence of sex also makes room for a reconnection to her sensuality on her own terms. She might dance again. She might slow down and feel her own skin. She might allow herself to feel beauty, desire, aliveness, not for anyone else, but because she is allowed to feel it without apology. She learns that she is not dependent on another to awaken her. She is capable of awakening herself, and in that process, she becomes less afraid of loneliness and more in love with solitude. Less fixated on being desired and more committed to being deeply, authentically herself. In this space of rediscovery, she doesn't shrink, she expands, not into someone else's fantasy, but into her own truth. The absence of sex becomes a return to self, a remembering of what it means to be whole. And when she chooses to invite intimacy again, it will not be from a place of need, but from a place of knowing. Because she has met herself in the absence, and now she knows her worth in fullness. In the quiet absence of sex, a woman does not lose herself. She finds herself. What begins as a withdrawal from intimacy can become a return to truth, to the core of her emotional, sensual, and spiritual identity. It is not sex that defines her, but the depth with which she is seen, the presence with which she is held, and the love with which she holds herself. Her sensual energy does not disappear. It waits, it evolves, and it teaches her to reclaim her power without permission. Through stillness, through longing, and through sacred solitude, she learns that her worth is not in being desired, but in knowing that she is already whole, untouched, unshaken, and unimaginably radiant.